You've seen it here, folks. The Manager Champions on Andrew Interviews, where only true legends and true champions interview.
So I'm sitting here with Eric Nelson. He's the ringleader, the powerhouse of the Stranglehold Wrestling Network. Did I say that right?
Stranglehold Championship.
Championship. Damn, I knew there was another.
That's all right, we'll fix it.
Whatever in there. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and I want you to go ahead and just kind of start raw, introduce yourself, and tell me about some of your early inspirations.
Well, folks, as you well know, I am the Manager of Champions, Eric Nelson. I am the head of Stranglehold Championship Wrestling Network. But we'll talk about my humble beginnings just for a second. Let's go back to kindergarten, first grade era of my life when Ox Baker was the most intimidating heel in professional wrestling. At least in my eyes, he was. So we'll go back in history to a place called the Macon Coliseum, as it stands now as Macon Centerplex. Ox Baker had that reputation of killing people with his finisher called the Hart Punch. So naturally, my younger self was very frightened of this man. I was like, you know, please, I hope he never gets a hold of me and does the Hart Punch on me. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to die like these other guys, you know. So during this time, we're anticipating Ox Baker's fearsome match. We're at the concession line, because you know what kid doesn't like junk food, right, folks? And all of a sudden, the lights go dim. Right, so me and my friends, we turn around, we look. And there with those beady eyes and that dark mustache is Ox Baker, and we're like, oh my God, you know what I'm saying? Ox Baker just kind of looks down at us with that trademark, just evil look, and then he looks at the concession lady with his smile and he says, these boys are my guests tonight, treat them to anything they want. And he handed them some money. And we were blown away, we're like, wow, did that just happen? Ox Baker bought us junk food? I mean, who does that, right? So it was at that moment where I realized this is where I belonged. Professional wrestling is where I belonged. But my life didn't take me on a straight and narrow path to the professional wrestling industry. After that night, of course, we're probably the only people in there cheering for Ox Baker. Of course, everybody else always cheers for the babyface, right? Not us. We were cheering for Ox Baker because he sugared us up so much, our parents probably wanted to kill him with the Hart Punch, you know what I mean? So that goes without saying. So let's fast forward into the 90s. There was a phenomenon at that time that was emanating out of Philadelphia, PA called ECW. Mm-hmm. At that time, I was a young enlisted man in the United States Navy aboard the USS Enterprise. And late at night on the Armed Forces Radio Network, jokingly we call it AFARPS, you know, that's their acronym, we watched Extreme Championship Wrestling. We watched Sabu and Tommy Dreamer, and all these guys just go out there and kill each other, you know? And we're like, at the time, we're a bunch of naive, half-drunken fans, and we're like, you know what? We are going to take a road trip to Philadelphia, PA, because we want to drink some beers like the Sandman and watch these guys pummel each other. So that goes without saying, I had a good friend, Richard Norman. Richard, if you're out there, thank you, buddy. That meant a lot. You know what I'm saying? Come see me sometime. You need to. All right, well, anyway. So being naive, I had no knowledge of what the wrestling business really was at that time, only from a fan's perspective. I went and bought all this beer at the package store in Norfolk, Virginia. We packed our coolers full. And then everybody except myself and Richard Norman backed out. So I was like, okay, so what am I going to do with all this beer? I'm going with me and Richard, who says, oh, by the way, you go enjoy the show. You're going to drop me at my girlfriend's house. Here's the building. Here's your girlfriend's house. I'll see you later, pal. You know, good luck to you. So here I am. I see a guy walk out the side door smoking a cigarette. And I'm like, okay, that must be where I go buy a ticket. So I still have a beer in my hand, not knowing any better or any etiquette of any sort. And I walk into the ECW locker room. I'm just like, wait just a minute. Am I in the right place? I don't see the ticket booth here, and I recognize that guy as Sabu. I recognize that guy as Sandman. And several other guys that I watched practically kill each other on television late night. So as I turn for the door, you know, I get a greeting by Sabu. Says, excuse me, sir, do you have another one of those refreshing beverages for me? I was like, well, sure, right out here in the car, sir. Follow me. I was like, hey, I've been, following you guys' show, man. This is good stuff. I was like, where do I go get a ticket? So he says, oh, just grab a beer, come with me. I was like, okay. So we walk back in the locker room. So we get back in the locker room. Sabu, I hope you're listening to this because, you know what I mean. I still owe you good for that one, buddy. We had a great time. We walk back in with a beer each in our hand, and everybody stops and looks at us as like, well, where's our beer? So thanks to Sabu, I got rid of all my beer because Sabu said, well, we have plenty of it in the car. So naturally, we have to go outside, tote the beer back in the locker room, and everybody has a great time. Well, I had the opportunity to hang with several of these guys for a few weeks here and there, a couple months. Well, of course, with any servicemen, we get orders to deploy. Well, I had to say bye to my newfound party animal friends, and I didn't quite get what was going on at that time. It was like, well, I had fun drinking and partying with these guys and watched them kill each other. Of course, when I got back, I ended up married and having my first kid, and my life went a different way. And
what age were you at that point? That you were called into service? And
well, like I said, I'd been in a while. By that time, I was 22 years of age when I got married. Mm-hmm. So I didn't quite grasp what was going on around me. I didn't quite say, hey, how can I get into ECW, or how can I get into this business? Mm-hmm. I was just having fun drinking beer and partying with these guys each and every time I went to Philadelphia to watch them perform. So fast forward several years later, let's go to 2002. I had orders to be a recruiter for the Navy in a town called Warner Robins, Georgia, 15 minutes from Macon, Georgia, which is my hometown. A good old high school buddy of mine, Scott Hunt, stopped by my mom's house because he got wind by my mother that I'd be in town, that I was going to be sleeping on the couch miserable because I had the flu. Somehow between Virginia and Georgia, it just doesn't hold up with cold symptoms and those things, especially in the wintertime. So Scott runs in and says, hey man, good to see you, give me a hug. I'm like, bro, I'm sick, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He says, but the Rock and Roll Express is going to be in Fort Valley, Georgia tonight. I'm like, are you kidding me? The Rock and Roll Express from the 80s? Oh wow, this is going to be amazing. So let me get off the couch, let me put on some clothes, and let's do this, because I was wrapped up in like my pajamas, sitting there while my mom was making me chicken soup, and my dad said, hey son, you need to get off the couch and go do something other than sit here and breathe my air. Always my father. Anyway, so I go to this place called AWN. It stood for All-Star Wrestling Network. And I witnessed the Rock and Roll Express. Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, as you all know and love, now Hall of Famers, face a group called the Southside Trash. Never forget it. I'm like, holy cow. I walk in the door, Rock and Roll Express, they sign autographs, they greet me, we get to talking. After the show, I run into an old friend of mine, Dangerous Danny Horn. Love you, bro. I'll see you in July. I hope you're ready, by the way. Anyway, I digress. So Dangerous Danny Horn sees me in the crowd because I start heckling from the crowd and giving him a hard time. So he jerks me over the ropes and takes me to the back and is like, bro, where have you been? Man, how long are you going to be here? I said, well, I'm going to be here a couple of years. He's like, really? He said, well, I got just a spot for you, man. You need to come out here and work with us, man. You need to be in the wrestling business. You need to come out here and be a part of what we're doing. I'm like, dude, sign me up. It sounds like a party. You know what I mean? So I got my first gig with AWN. I met Michael Bullard, a.k.a. Mike Money. And you can take that at the bank. So Mike Money's active duty Air Force. He's the promoter and one of the top managers of AWN at the time. And he says, so you're going to be here a while. I like military folks because I'm military. He throws me a security shirt and says, man your battle stations, Navy man. And, well, I spent 3 luxurious years working for AWN. I started out security for a couple of weeks. Next thing you know, I'm their ring announcer. Then I'm sitting color commentary. And I'm calling the action as it's going on. And of course, I'm giving my old pal, Dangerous Danny Horn, a hard time from the side booth. Then I meet guys like the Extreme Phenom. I meet Dirty Don. I meet the Kingpin. I meet all these guys who helped shape my life in the early stages of my career in the wrestling business. I learned so much, and all of a sudden, I met Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson. Next thing you know, I'm meeting Jim Cornette. I'm meeting Tony Atlas, George the Animal Steele, God rest his soul. One of my all-time favorites, and we'll talk about him later on. because that's a very heartfelt topic for me. So all these guys welcomed me into their fold. It was the first time I'd ever heard some guys who weren't even blood related to me call me brother. And they not only said that they were my brother, but they showed me. And I know some of you guys are out there listening. I haven't forgot you. And I'll see you soon. You can bet on that. So they took me through. They taught me a few of the ins and outs. Now, mind you, even today, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know everything about the professional wrestling business, because that would not be the truth. You're always learning. You're always making yourself better. You're always looking at what you've done and say, what can I do better? What are my shortcomings? How can I be better? How can I learn more? How can I be more? And most importantly, what can I do to improve the business? And that's important. We always need a way to improve our business. But anyway, I digress, sir. So, inevitably, in 2007, I get the orders to deploy. They throw me a nice going away. They even gave me a scrapbook. I even told all the wrestling legends, friends of mine, I'll see you on the other side when I get back. We'll resume. But I was all about helping other people, more so than helping myself. AWN, of course, is still going today. A lot of those guys still very near and dear to me, and we'll see them all in July. So let's go to my tour in Virginia Beach. I come back from Operation Enduring Freedom. I run across a place called SBW Virginia Beach. A guy called the Dustman, who's also no longer promoting wrestling, or performing for that matter. And I meet another group of guys. I meet some awesome guys. I meet Preston Quinn. I meet Damian Wayne. You know, as it progresses with my time in Virginia, I meet Bo Crockett. I meet some really great guys. I meet a guy you all see. He was Crotch back then, a vampire named Crotch. And that guy always sticks with me. Hey, brother, I'll see you soon. And another guy named Trimmer. They're a tag team now, and they'll also be part of the 40-man Epic Rumble July 6th. And I hope you two boys are ready, because I'm looking forward to it. I know you won't disappoint me. But also, something very near and dear to my heart, ECW original, C.W. Anderson. I got to work a lot with him while I was in Virginia. And also, you guys will see him with Damian Wayne as they face off on July the 6th. So you're going to get a very nostalgic, very traditional match out of these two gentlemen, and I promise you, whoever gets their hand raised at the end, they had to work for it, because let me tell you something. You guys are in for a treat. I know I am. And it's my show. But I know I'm in for a treat. Anyway. Now my champion, the real unstoppable, true SA, the true Americans. Bo Crockett is coming all the way from the Mid-Atlantic to team with the real unstoppable to face the Dashly and Unholy Alliance. Now you guys have taken me through the ringer in the last decade or more, but the manager of champions is always one step ahead. And don't you boys forget it. George Wally, I'm looking at you. So anyway, back to the interview. I had to throw that in there. So, working the Mid-Atlantic territory was a treat. I got to meet Uncle Ivan, as he was so affectionately called. The world knows him as Ivan Koloff. I also met Nikita Koloff, and the Koloffs became part of my life, not just as wrestling legends, not just as people I share a locker room with, but I learned a lot of life lessons listening to their testimony as ministers. If you didn't know that, Ivan Koloff in his later years was a minister, an ordained minister at that. Nikita Koloff is still out there spreading the word.
Is he going to be at your July 6th show?
Not this time, but don't worry, Mr. Koloff, I haven't forgot you either.
Okay.
But speaking of the ministry, have you ever seen The Masked Saint?
No, I have not.
Well, The Masked Saint was about a pro wrestler turned pastor. You know, basically helping people overcome. Well, the inspiration and author behind The Masked Saint, Pastor Chris Whaley, will be at July 6th. He will have copies of The Masked Saint, and he'll be there to spread his testimony as well during our convention portion. So that'll be a nice treat to have him. Pastor Whaley, looking forward to it, sir. So as my career in this business progressed, I met another man as I ventured into Pennsylvania by the name of Joseph von Schmidt, the supreme German athlete. Met in Pennsylvania, a place called LCW, Lancaster Championship Wrestling. And he said, you know what? I got some other places I work throughout the Northeast. Why don't you come with me? And of course, we worked shows all over New Jersey, all through the Northeast. So, wrestling is like cuisine. There's different flavors no matter what part of the country you're standing in. So I was getting a taste of what the Northeast was like. I was getting a taste of what the Mid-Atlantic was like. I'd already had a taste of the Southeast. So moving around, learning the different, what the fans liked and didn't like in other parts of the world. I mean, wrestling's wrestling, but the fan bases, no matter where you are in this country, have what they like and what they don't like. Typically, Southern wrestling has never really been appetizing in the North, and sometimes vice versa. And that goes without saying in other parts of the country. So, traveling around with guys like Joseph von Schmidt and several people that he's introduced me to. Now I'd worked behind the scenes in over 16 states by this time. Now I got a taste of what wrestling was like everywhere else besides what I was familiar with and what I was comfortable with. I mean, sure, ECW was, a different animal altogether. But I was so used to the Southern style of wrestling that I grew up with. But then I got to see what was, what big picture wise everywhere else, and made lots of contacts along the way. So I feel that has helped me with my successes. It's helped me to step back and say, let's give the people something different. Let's give them fresh ideas. Let's give them a fresh approach to professional wrestling. So, like I said, what you guys will see July 6th, you'll see a very big mix of, Southern wrestling, Northeastern styles, Midwest, Mid-Atlantic. You'll see all of that because I'm bringing people in from all over the country. A 40-man Epic Rumble, which you'll basically get an appetizer of some of the best unsigned talent out there. Let's not forget my main event. Let's talk about, you mentioned King Kong Bundy a while ago.
I sure did. One of my favorites.
Well, we all know that, unfortunately, we lost him recently. So, before I get to my main event, let's talk about my salute to a friend of mine, King Kong Bundy. So I have two really big monstrous men ready to tie up.
Yep.
One is the Monster Enraged. He's a 6'9" monster with an endless appetite. I want to give that same flair that Bundy brought, where it was basically the immovable object meets the irresistible force, or something like that. You get what I'm saying. Of course, it'll be winner by a 5 count.
Yep.
Love you, Bundy. So that's something I'm going to do, a salute to a friend. As we talked about, who's going to fill their shoes, the main event is going to be just that. Road Warrior Animal has his two new proteges, Crimson and Jack Stane, the War Kings. And they will be in tag team action for our main event. So you will see essentially what the Road Warriors will continue their legacy with in my main event, July 6th.
Where'd you find those guys at? Because I looked at those, they look pretty intimidating.
They are. Well, I did not find them.
Okay.
Mr. Animal himself found them. And it was funny because I'm very familiar with Crimson's work as well as Jack Stane. They're both very phenomenal talents. And, well, it seems that Road Warrior Animal has agreed with me. And now he's formed the War Kings with these guys, and they're wearing the paint, the spikes, and all the glory, and they're going to go in there and shock and awe. And I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, they looked incredible when I went on your website and took a look at them. They looked incredible.
Yeah, I pride myself in being very selective on what I add to my product. I want the fans to be like, wow, I've got to go to this next show. I've got to see what he's got up his sleeve next.
So before you get too far ahead, take me back So 9 years old, you were telling me about, tell me that wrestler's name again.
Oh, it was earlier than that, Ox Baker. We're talking more 5 or 6.
Okay. So Ox Baker, so you grew up in Macon, Georgia.
Right.
Big influence, Ox Baker, going to these shows, engaging the wrestlers, back when the wrestlers were in your face, they're in the lobby, they're signing, they're part of the show, they're respecting the fans, they're glad that you came.
Absolutely.
Right. And then we jump to you getting ready to go to the service. What service did you join? Was that 2007?
U.S. Navy. I was actually part of the U.S. Navy from 93 to 2016.
Okay.
The early 90s, when ECW was at its height, is when I stumbled upon them, being on the warship USS Enterprise, and meeting Sabu and a lot of those guys, and basically having one heck of a party with those guys.
So you were enrolled, you were enlisted when you met those guys?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Gotcha.
I was a full-on active duty Navy man at that time.
And how did you stumble on ECW? Were they just performing in your local town?
Well, no, they showed up on Armed Forces television really late at night on board ship. So a lot of us coming back from partying out in town, turn it on, you see these guys, killing each other. I mean, more extreme stuff than you were used to seeing in a wrestling ring.
Yep.
A lot of that stuff wasn't seen before. It was cutting edge. It was very edgy. Very not your grandfather's wrestling promotion, I might say. It was definitely something with my southern eyes I was not used to seeing.
Now you mentioned I grew up in the North. I love wrestling. Now you mentioned the different brands, different flavors regionally,
right,
which I think is probably a representation of the geographical boundaries. I mean, we're now in a global market, global communication.
Absolutely.
Back the generation before that, things were more isolated to the geographical region because that's the reach that you had and the media that you were exposed to and how far you could travel and what have you.
Of course, that's why you had territories back then.
How would you, if you were going to describe the flavor of the different territories to somebody that had not tasted them, how would you describe each one?
Well, the South has always been smash mouth in your face. I mean, one thing about the South, we breed athletes here. The Road Warriors got their start in 1982 in Georgia Championship Wrestling. Yep. Tony Atlas got his start in Georgia with Georgia Championship Wrestling. Like I said, in your face, just ground and pound, just in your face. Mid-Atlantic, you got guys like Ric Flair. More technically minded wrestlers, not all muscle, not beat you to a pulp kind of guy, but a guy who could outthink you. Right, which I attribute to his success. And you go to the North, where the one thing about the Northeast, when you had the WWF, was what the WWF had was larger than life characters. You had a snake man, you had a giant, you had a guy who would jump barefoot off of a steel cage. You had a real American. You had all these characters. You had a macho man. You had an ultimate warrior. You had all these things that set them apart from everybody else. Individuality. There's a lot of that still. That's kind of what I perceived when I went north. Not so much Philadelphia, because they wanted all that crazy, hit you with some barbed wire, set you on fire kind of stuff. ECW, CZW, good stuff. I love it. So you get a lot more character development in the North, but you get a lot more just in your face, beat you to a pulp kind of wrestling in the South. You get a lot more technically minded stuff in the Carolinas and the Mid-Atlantic region. I'll also add that the Hardy Boys came from North Carolina, very sound technical guys, very acrobatic. They brought a lot to the table. They revolutionized the industry. So that's how I would describe the different flavors of wrestling and around the United States. Of course, you get to Texas with the World Classic stuff. You get out to Southern California with more luchador style.
Good description. I think that helped really paint a picture. I'm always trying to put my finger on it myself too. When I think I know something, and then I talk to somebody else and I realize how little I know. and there's only so much you can be exposed to. I mean,
right, and I'm just going from my perception from my travels, and what I've seen in wrestling rings all over the country. That's picture it's painted for me over time.
Yep, which is a really neat picture, and so obviously you find a lot of brotherhood, a lot of fraternity, a lot of family in wrestling, a lot of acceptance. And then entertainment. I mean, this is a sport of entertainment.
Absolutely.
And you seem to really appreciate that. You seem to really tune into that and value that and sink your teeth into how to replicate it and how to understand it to its fullest so you can replicate it.
Right.
And I have a lot of admiration for you for doing that.
Thank you, sir.
So you go into the forces. You said the Navy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You were in the Navy from 93 to 2007.
2016.
2016.
Right.
Okay.
Retired in March of 2016.
So that's quite a career.
It has been, and it was. I do business sometimes.
So you're retired from the Navy?
I am.
And so tell me about when you came in the Navy. You were stationed here the whole time in this country?
Well, mostly based off the Eastern Seaboard. I did travel the world, 63 countries, 9 engagements. Met a lot of good people. A lot of the reason I stuck around the military is I always met great people.
Yeah.
And was always around great people. I mean, sure, like any other job or any other career, you run across people you can't really mesh well with. But I met a lot of people that I did mesh well with, built a lot of long-term relationships with, and also even followed me throughout wrestling. A lot of those guys and girls that I spent my time with on that side of the fence follow me and support me with what I'm doing now, and I appreciate that, y'all. Thank y'all.
That's very cool.
Y'all come see me, all right?
That's very cool. That's very cool. And I think that's why a lot of us are in this, is because we do feel a fraternity and a kinship, you know, and just, you know, when I talked with you on the phone on Friday and we talked for, I don't know, hour and a half, I said, I can't wait to have this guy on my show.
Absolutely.
Because he's lived it his whole life, and I doubt there's anything I couldn't ask him that I'm not going to engage some critical thought and some intellectual thought and really probably get some insight that maybe I haven't been exposed to. And I think that's very valuable, very wealthy. And so I love that type of stuff. Now, talk to me about King Kong Bundy. Before we started rolling the tape, I'd shared with you that I almost had him on my show and I had him lined up, and you were sharing that he was a longtime friend and someone that you really respected as well.
Absolutely. I can't say enough good things about the guy. He was a wealth of knowledge. One of the things I'll say about any of the legends that I've come across in the time that I've done this is they've always passed on really good knowledge that I've been able to take and embrace as my own and learn from. And take it at face value, because it's like, hey, we've been here, we've done it. This is where we've succeeded. This is where we've failed. This is where this will help you. This is where it won't. And I feel that's been the greatest gift of all, is the knowledge that they've passed on, especially guys like Bundy. Never crossed word. Had a very patient demeanor. Had a good sense of humor too.
Yeah, he sure did. I never met the man personally, but I saw a couple of his shoot interviews, and that was a big influence for me starting my channel.
Oh, absolutely.
Bundy was very well spoken, very intelligent, and I think he was a little sharp sometimes. He could be pointing at you. But
that was who he was.
Yeah, but for the most part, when I look online, I mean, the things that people are saying about Bundy is he was like the kindest person that they've ever met. And,
one of them, yes. And
his obituary said, don't make donations to my family, make it to this humane society, this animal shelter or something like that.
Yeah, Bundy was serious about his cats.
Was he?
I felt bad that I couldn't help. I saw an ad not long after his passing that his cats were about to have to go to a shelter or whatever, and I felt so bad because I was in a position where I couldn't help at the time.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that there's been some resolution there, and that they found good homes and get the kind of love and respect that he gave them.
Yeah.
Because he was serious about his cats.
Yeah. Bundy was from up in New Jersey, not too far from where I grew up and where I lived. So I really just felt a kinship for somebody I never met. I mean, we watched these people on TV day in, day out, week in, weekend out, and I know I do feel like they're family.
Well, I'd like to share a special kind of heartwarming story with you, because we're nearing the time that this happened. I lost my father in August of 2012.
Oof.
The year prior, Call to Arms will be around the anniversary of a show I did with Georgia Championship Wrestling in my hometown, Macon, Georgia, which my father was more excited about promoting that show than I was. And it was one of my better drawing shows. There was not an empty seat in the house. We had Mr. USA Tony Atlas, which you guys will see again July 6th. We had Abdul the Butcher, and we had Wildfire Tommy Rich, 3 Georgia Championship Wrestling originals in-house. My father woke up at 4 a.m., let me sleep in, as he put it. And he went to little towns like Roberta and Lizella and wherever he could go to drop off handbills for this show. And for all of you who don't know what a handbill is, it's a 5x7 glossy color replica of your poster. Well, I had 10,000 of them in the backseat of my car. Well, he acquired them from my vehicle and went all over the place. So 6 o'clock, he comes back to the house, is kicking me in the legs, saying, "Get up, I got breakfast." He had stopped by Crystal and got us all breakfast. He said, "We got more promoting to do. You got a show to run." So I had been out for 10 days prior, just hitting the pavement everywhere. Warner Robins, Millersville, all these towns that were close to Macon, promoting this show. And he had gone, he'd followed some of my own footsteps and, you know, found some places where I sat back the next day. It's like, well, why didn't I think of that? But, you know, sometimes 2 heads are definitely better than one. And that's something I find very true in my current organization.
Yep.
So a year later, August 2012, he passed away of cancer. Pancreas cancer is very aggressive. And once they find it, it's pretty much a done deal. So I had just wrapped my mind around him being sick, and then all of a sudden he's gone. Well, I was in pieces. The insurance money was in probate to bury my father. So Mr. USA Tony Atlas reached out to me and said, "We got to do something for your dad," because when we did the show in Macon, Tony Atlas apparently talked to my father about me for a long time. I had no knowledge of this. You know, leave it to my dad. Miss you, Dad. Wish you were here. Apparently Tony and my father talked a very long time about yours truly without my knowledge. And so Tony came down here on his own dime the end of August 2012 to a benefit show for my father. And Mr. Bill Eadie, which the world knows him, Georgia Championship Wrestling as a mass superstar in the WWE S1E3. He was one half of the longest reigning tag team, Demolition. Mr. Eadie, thank you for always being there. Thanks for being, like I say, a father to me. It means a lot. And I'll see you soon. So these gentlemen came and did everything they could to help me put on a prize winning show on a Thursday night, competing against high school football in Georgia. And you know that's a feat in itself. You know we're serious about our football. High school, college, all that. It's life for a lot of these folks, as well as wrestling. Well, they came in. We filled up the place. Tony Atlas, Mr. Eadie made sure every fan got an autograph. We did quite a show. Dangerous Danny Horn, Extreme Phenom, which you guys will see again, and several names that you'll see in July all came out and helped me out and gave my father a proper send-off. And that's something that's always been right here and always will. The manager of champions never forgets.
That's got to feel good, man. My father passed away in 2001, and I know it devastated me. I used to build houses with my dad and worked with him, and sounds like you had a similar, very close relationship with your father, and I can imagine how devastated you must have been, and certainly I know how devastated I was.
Well, I'll definitely add this. He was my inspiration for joining the Navy. He did 4 years in the Navy, And he told me all the stories of his exploits, and that's why I felt a kinship to the Navy especially, and felt, you know, did my part.
Yep, yep. So take me back to, you spent a long time in the Navy, a long time. And so I'm trying to wrap my head around that, because it's not I was in the Navy for 2 years and I came out. That was your life for a long time.
Right.
Right. For 93 to 2016, so 25 years?
24.
Okay.
Roughly.
Yeah, so
22 and, well, 23 and some change. So right
23 and some change. So long time to be, that is definitely your life, a lifestyle, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
You're in the Navy, you're traveling, I'm presuming, are you stationed in one location or are you traveling a bit? I guess Navy,
Well,
are you on a ship?
We were home ported out of Norfolk mostly.
Okay.
A lot of places I was attached to were based out of Norfolk, Virginia Beach areas.
Gotcha.
And of course we deployed wherever the demand was. And I got pretty much see all the world because of those things.
So how does a young man go from being a fan, attending these events, and being gregarious and generous and charitable and fun, right, and drinking with the boys and hanging out? How do you go from that to hosting your first event? Take me on that journey.
Well, like I said, back in the very beginning when I met the AWN guys, which got me in the business.
Yeah.
And I'll give Danny Horn a lot of credit there. He introduced me to Mike Money, the promoter, and got me in the door. And both of them will tell you, if you were to ask them, that I pretty much not only walked halfway in the door, but I kicked it in and kept running.
Yeah.
Because I was hungry, I always wanted more. I did the legwork. I reached out to everybody I could reach out to. Of course, I'd met the Rock and Roll Express. They turned me on to Jim Cornette and some of the other guys. It's like, here's this guy's number. You should run shows. Reach out to this guy. You know, they need some work. Absolutely, of course, I would love to. You know, because that was a dream come true.
Yeah.
From the time Hoxbaker first scared me to death, to buying me candy, to drinking with the ECW boys on, this was like, wow, that we're really at this point now. I did not run my first show on my own until 2010.
Okay.
Helped a friend of mine out of Dublin, Georgia, Sean Hunter. We went to the fairgrounds, put on a show. My present-day wife, Brandy Scotch Baker, was featured in a ladies' match on that card. We knew each other a long time before we even started dating. But it was these moments that planted the seeds to what we have now.
Right.
We didn't fall in love because of wrestling. Wrestling just led us to fall in love because we had so much in common. Sorry, that's a very favorite topic of mine.
Yeah.
Hope I'm not boring you to death on that.
No, I think that's fantastic.
So I met her. Of course, we have a lovely 4-year-old boy. I do have 2 other beautiful children. One, William, he's an art major. He not much into wrestling, but he loves art. But wrestling and art are one and the same, son. Sorry to disappoint you. My daughter, Katie, she really, she likes it to a point, but she likes sit back and watching Dad work. She's expressed that you know, she wants to do the managerial side of things more so than getting trained up to go beat up other women. It's like, good, use your brain and not your brawn, sweetheart. You're smarter than your old man.
You taught her well, huh?
Yes, sir.
Now, take me to, you said you hosted your own first match in 2010, 2011. Take me to those first couple matches that you were teaming up with your friend, colleague. How do you do your first match? I mean, it's easy once you're running.
I went to him and I said, I'm tired of sitting on the sidelines just helping other people. I'm ready to really get my feet wet, learn how to do this. He said, well, let's run a show in Dublin. We can do well in Dublin. Dublin's not one of those towns that at that time was being very well cultivated for wrestling. It had in the past, but it didn't have a continuous following like some of the other towns did. So let's say we had 350 to 400 people our first show. We did pretty good. There were a lot of takeaways from that. We had some outside sponsors help out. So that taught me, okay, to have a really good show, I need lots of sponsors. I need to help people become part of something bigger than themselves. I need to help drive them into that area, because one person cannot run the ship. And that was one takeaway I had from that first venture. And that leads me to where we are now. After that show, I started planning shows in conjunction with Georgia Championship Wrestling. I got hired on as their vice president early 2011. And by the time we did the Macon show, July of that year, we had a few under our belt. Mr. Grady Ohm, thanks for that. Thank you for teaching me a lot of what I know, and thanks for making me more knowledgeable and more successful in what I've decided to pursue with my life. I hope to see you in July, so you can witness what you've helped create. So Grady Ohm at that time was the CEO of Georgia Championship Wrestling. He brought me in as his right-hand man, helping him put together shows. Georgia Championship Wrestling was a household name back in the 70s and 80s. As I mentioned, it launched the careers of the Road Warriors, of Tony Atlas, of several Hall of Famers in this business. You know, it took Mass Superstar into WWF, where he became part of Demolition.
Yep.
So there was a lot of that. You know, Georgia Championship Wrestling was a stepping stone for a lot of these greats that paved the way for myself and many others. And as I took a step back, it's like, okay, so I've been second banana or behind the scenes for all these organizations. In 2014, I said, okay, now it's time to go to the next level. Now it's time to really step up and be my own entity. So with the help of some fellow brothers in arms, Ricky Owens, U.S. Navy, Michael Bullard, Mike Money, who helped me out greatly, Steve Alcey, one of my first vendors, U.S. Army, and of course, let's not forget my crazy Chief Operations Officer, Jeremiah Kaup, a.k.a. Dr. Quack. And boy, let me tell you, some of the best adventures I've had in the wrestling world have all began with Quack and I did this. And that would be a whole nother interview for another day.
Yeah, so I can line him up and get the other half of the stories.
If I could tell you stories about mine and Dr. Quack's exploits throughout the Mid-Atlantic and some in the North and some in the West Virginia, Ohio area, it was always fun. Never a dull moment with Dr. Quack.
I can imagine.
So we came together and we said, all right, let's do this.
Yep.
I said, let's do something that will recognize the world over. Let's do something that will garner respect, something that will stand out amongst everybody else. So we came up with Stranglehold Championship Wrestling. Now, bear in mind, I have Stranglehold Championship Wrestling Network on our Facebook, because, as I say, there are folks out there who want a taste to go to that next level. Well, that's why I've had a network, because I'm looking for folks like you. So don't be shy. Come talk to me. Come pitch me an idea. You know, it may begins with, you know, one or two of us, but I want you for the Stranglehold Army.
So you branch out, franchise this
absolutely
business model.
I have affiliates all over the U.S.
So if I came to you today and I said, Eric, I want to open up my own Stranglehold wrestling out in Colorado.
Let's rock and roll. And I want to touch on that for a minute.
Okay.
There's a man who recently joined our fold, David with Boot and Heel. David has been recently promoted to the head of my marketing department. His brand, Boot and Heel, is an apparel company, but what they are focused on is marketing you into an enterprise. One of his chief focuses is all you unsigned great talents out there feel like your voice isn't being heard. Boot and Heel is where you need to be, because Boot and Heel is synonymous with Stranglehold Championship Wrestling. Boot and Heel is taking these young, unsigned, hungry talents. We promote every event that you're on, no matter if it's a Stranglehold event or not. You could be at, you know, Johnny's Championship Wrestling, you know, somewhere out in the Midwest. You could be anywhere doing anything. No matter if you're on my show, or excuse me, our show or not. You're one of our people. You're part of our network. We're going to promote you and make you big, make you an enterprise. Come holler at us. Get with Boot and Heel. They got you.
So the first show you're putting on with your buddy, I guess he's providing a lot of the financial resources, or lining up a lot of the financial resources, and you're doing a lot of them.
Well, he knew the Dublin area better than I did. He got us with American Deli and the Rent a Center and several other businesses to where we pretty much all we had to do was tell people to show up.
Yep.
Now it was a very limited budget at first. We had some people come in just to help out. A lot of great talent, including my wife, because she believed in what we were doing. You know, she knew I'd started to build a reputation at that point. She knew Mr. Hunter's reputation at that point. So she came in to help us grow into something. But like I said, there was a lot of takeaways from that. It was time. Yeah, that was a stepping stone for me. I decided to go a different way. He decided to go a different way. No hard feelings. But I went forward with Georgia Championship Wrestling. Did a lot with them. Went back to Virginia, back to SPW. Helped him put together his Star City Wrestle Fest, where we had Jim Cornette and Cowboy Bob Orton, several legends at our tables. That was actually the last public wrestling appearance of George the Animal Steele. And I remember when he got off the plane, he looked at me and said, "If you were anybody else, I would have told you I'm staying home." And George the Animal Steele was like a grandfather to me, and I appreciated a lot of his insight. Well, like I said, my wife and I were talking. We had actually looked at Ox Baker. He was actually alive at that time because her name, Brandy Scott Baker, she is one of parts of her character. She's the illegitimate granddaughter of Ox Baker. That's part of her character. Well, George Steele had not only been, told me stories of, his wrestling and all, but George was a college professor and also a football coach. So the other side of him was Coach Myers. We didn't just talk wrestling, we talked life. And he was sometimes that angel on my shoulder to help me not make dumb decisions. And I really miss that about him.
Yeah.
So when he came and did that show for me, he says, I really want you to succeed no matter what, so I'm here for you. He said, a lot of people might not remember me, but here I am. You've got the animal. We had turnbuckle pads signed and pictures signed, and we just had a blast. I'll never forget seeing him off. I didn't realize that was the last time I was going to see him. Really glad my wife got to meet him, and of course she took him out to dinner and to the airport because she wanted to do her version of a send off to him as well. She got very close to him in his later years as well, and liked to hear him tell stories and kind of coach us along during our little squabbles. Right. He wasn't taking sides. He's like, he would tell me what I'm doing wrong. He would kind of give her ideas, and he helped us out a lot. Like I said, wrestling's been my life, and that was a lot of it. Is people like that who practically adopted me and became part of my family.
Why do you think they took you under their wing, Eric?
Well, George's greatest compliment to anybody was, "You get it." That was his thing. If George said, "You get it," that was basically his stamp of approval. It's funny. I got an action figure of him right around the time we did that last show together. He signed it to me in green, of course. Yeah. And on the back of it is like, favorite quote, "Do you get it?" Right, that was his thing. If George the Animal still look at you say, "You get it," there's no higher compliment there. A lot of these guys have invested a lot of time in me. Let's say good, bad, and indifferent, but it's all been a blessing and a lesson every time I've talked to them. Even some of the guys who have put in the years in the indies, Joseph Von Schmidt, Danny Horn, Extreme Phenom. Listen, I mean, I'd be here 2 weeks giving props to everybody in this business in general that has helped me and continues to help me. I love all you guys, man. All you guys and girls out there, my brothers and sisters. Thanks for being a part of my life, and thanks for having me a part of your lives.
Now tell me a bit about your wife. I went and I looked at her Facebook page and her profile when you gave me her email address.
Right.
I said, Eric, Brandy Baker, who is that? That's not Eric. And then I stumbled on her profile, and I said, "Oh wow!"
Well, let me tell you
the whole
the story.
wrestling family.
Let me tell you the story of Brandy Scotch Baker.
Okay.
It's also a, well, that's actually near and dear to all of us present. Brandy Scotch Baker was a lifelong wrestling fan. When she stood up at a very young age on the desk at school and said, "I want to be a professional wrestler," everybody made fun of her and said, "You'll never make it." Well, one of the things I love about my wife is she's just like me. If you tell her she can't have something, she proves you wrong.
Yeah.
She tells you, "Oh no, you're wrong, because not only am I going to get it, but I'm going to rub it in your face." Because she's an in-your-face kind of girl. She does all her talking in the ring. That's why she has me kind of do the talking for her. She's not much for words, but actions, in her case, speak a lot louder than words. So she found a school in Atlanta, Georgia, called WWE 4. At the time, there were some people there that were doing some kind of training. It got her started on the right path. It got her some fundamentals. And then, of course, she sustained an injury in a match, had to take a step out for a little while, came back. And then a couple short months. By that time, Total Protection, Mr. Hughes of WWE fame, had taken over the training and got her where she needed to be training-wise. She was also in the same training class as Heath Slater of WWE fame. And needless to say, she got stamp of approval the same time he did. A lot of people ask me, well, why didn't she go on to 300 out of 365 days a year? Was simple. The more kind and loving side of my wife is she's all about family. So she chose to hang back and be more with her family and wrestle for the indies more so than going out there and spend her life on the road. But needless to say, she goes in that ring. She gives 110% to anybody that steps between those ropes and is ready for her to bring it. And you better believe the manager of champions is always there by her side watching.
Now, how did you guys meet? I haven't seen one of her matches yet, but I'm excited to.
Well, I'm going to allude to a photograph here in a little while.
Okay. Come a little closer.
Let me know when.
A little more, a little more, a little more, right there, and hold it steady. And tell me of how you met her that day.
Well, I was not prepared to be ring announcer that night.
Okay.
I was also not prepared to interview anyone that night.
Yeah.
I've been helping set up the ring because we had done an outdoor show elsewhere. So I got told that a brand new female talent was debuting that night in Fort Valley by the name of Brandy Scotch Baker, that I was to interview her.
Oh, your photo went off.
Well,
yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
We got a good bit.
And maybe you'll send me that photo, Dob. Might even put it on the screen as you talk.
Right.
If you don't mind sharing.
Well, you're right. And we had a local girl at the time who doesn't even wrestle anymore that was supposed to wrestle her in a match that night. But as you can see, I couldn't take my eyes off on her the entire time we were talking.
You liked her, huh?
I was like, wow. That should remind me of a tall drink of Orange Crush.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you like Orange Crush, huh?
Definitely. One of my favorite drinks. Is very refreshing. But anyway,
and so after the match, you said, "Hey, let's go get a hamburger," and
well, no, we
we just worked together for a while.
I was married to my ex-wife at the time.
Gotcha.
It was one of those things initially, yes, that's very nice, that's very beautiful, but I'm not exactly available.
Right.
And I don't need to be having these thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But needless to say, we got to work together for several years afterward. Usually, if I did a show or was part of a show, she was there. You know, in full glory, ready to take on whatever opponent that we put in the ring with her. And like I said, wrestling has been life to me. I met the love of my life, all of my best friends, you know, even my long hair production guys sitting there grinning at me. I met because of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So wrestling has been my life.
Yep. Yep. So you met her, you met your wife, you guys worked together for a number of years, and then take me to the day that romance blossomed.
Well, It was some time after my father had passed. I kind of felt like my world was upside down. My previous marriage was on the rocks.
Yep.
Just my life in general just didn't really seem to have purpose. I was in a very dark place. I was living alone at the time. I didn't even have my children with me. Like I said, I just had 4 walls to go home to every night. And it was just a rough time for me.
Yep.
And of course I was venting to her like I would vent with the boys, you know. There was nothing extra creamy about it. But I basically confessed to her how I felt. And she said, well, I feel the same. And she came to where I was, and well, the rest is history.
How long after that were you married?
No, wasn't much longer after that. We were tying the knot. Seemed like it was all just like boom, 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 boom. Like, oh, married kid. Oh, here we are. Hello, you know?
Yeah.
And my life just went a completely different direction, and it revitalized me.
Yeah.
It gave me purpose to, you know, because I mentioned before, my life hasn't consistently been wrestling.
Yeah.
But it has always been at the forefront. But it revitalized me enough to where I got back on my feet, started running shows again, just started doing the things that brought us together, and the things that I loved. It was like a breath of fresh air.
Did your ex-wife, your now ex-wife, did she not support your wrestling vision?
No, definitely not.
Is that crushing in life when you're with somebody that doesn't support your passion?
It just seemed like we weren't really going the same direction. We just kind of grew apart. And a lot of my interests weren't her interests. A lot of her interests weren't my interests. And we just got to where it was a mutual thing that it wasn't going to work.
Yep.
We're still friends. We have a beautiful daughter together. But like I said, we get along better now than when we did when we were married. And like I said, I've been revitalized. I have one of my dreams at my side.
Yep.
Helping push Stranglehold forward into the next decade.
Yep.
God willing.
Yep.
She's actually the one who came up with the name Stranglehold. You know, while we were sitting around all brainstorming together, she said, hey, Stranglehold. Stranglehold, of course, one of the oldest wrestling moves in the book. Had a very in-your-face wrestling feel to it, and it stood out.
Yeah. Now, she is performing for your organization, right?
Of course. And I'll add a little caveat. Actually, America, I hope you're watching. You know, you might be great. You might be awesome. You might be scouting us, but we're watching you too. July 6th, will you step between those ropes with the ladies' legend, Brandy Scotch Baker? Better pack a lunch, sweetheart. It's going to be a long day for you.
I believe that. I saw your wife, and I bet she kicks some ass, man.
She's all business, brother.
I can only imagine. I was just attending some ladies wrestling matches myself. I've been getting into that as well lately, and
well, sir, you were in for a treat. Actually, America is definitely one of the brightest talents out there. We are looking forward to working with you. It's not all he. We're going to get you. We're generally looking forward to working with you and building a working relationship with you, Miss America. So
very cool. Very cool.
I know some other ladies out there watching this. Trust me, I'm watching too. You're on my radar. I want to build a strong women's division. That is one of my priorities because women's wrestling is taking a really huge step up in our business today.
Yep.
It's something I definitely respect, and I definitely am willing to do my part to grow women's wrestling as well.
Earlier off camera, we were talking about some of the guys that really influenced a lot of both of us, and I was sharing some of my favorites, and it seems like every favorite that I shared, I have these wrestling figures on the shelf here.
Right.
That you had a story to tell on everyone. Now tell me about Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful.
Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. I'll tell you what, Paul, I hadn't talked to you in a while. I hope you're feeling better. Hope to see you again sometime. Gun enthusiast, loves his weapons, loves hunting, avid sportsman. A lot of stories to tell, a lot of knowledge to pass on. And folks, if you want to win Mr. Orndorff over, only good Southern barbecue will do it. Because every meal we've had always had barbecue sauce, lots of it, lots of barbecue. And of course, I'm sure you've seen my recent commercial, Praise the Lord Barbecue out of Beaufort, Georgia. Folks, it don't get no better than that, let me tell you. Love you guys. So Paul Orndorff and I, we share the love of barbecue, the love of the outdoors, the love of guns.
Yep.
He's your true red blood American everyman guy. Not just as a competitor, not just a competitor in the ring in his heyday, but also in his everyday life.
He was built like a brick shithouse back in his day, right?
Absolutely. You know, I always, may I?
Sure.
I gotta tell you something.
Yeah.
I've been sitting here looking at this for the past couple of hours.
Yep.
I had one of these when I was a young man. Okay. I still have one in my my collection. You know, when I first saw this back in the 1980s, I was like, he looks like He-Man.
No shit.
I mean, think about the haircut, the build.
Yeah. The He-Man, and somebody had made a comparison of He-Man to Hulk Hogan, and He-Man parallels so much with the WWF and vice versa.
Well, when I looked at Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, I saw He-Man, even back in my youth, and that was something that always drew me to him. Always one of my favorite guys to work with. The Star City Wrestling Fest, where we basically said goodbye to George the last time we would see each other. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff was sitting right next to us. And I'll tell you what, we had a lot of fun with that, telling stories, listening to these guys, do some catching up. It was priceless. Yep. It was priceless.
Has he performed at any of your shows ever?
Well, he's been a guest. I mean, by the time I was running shows, Mr. Orndorff's health had not been what it was.
Yep.
And that's a very unfortunate thing. But he was always there to support me. We did lots of meet and greets and autograph signs together. He critiqued what we were doing, gave me his input. A lot of takeaways from that. This man right here, a lot of help to me in beginning my career in professional wrestling. If you're out there, Paul, I hope to hear from you again soon. I hope this finds you healthy. Anyway.
Very cool.
Here you are, sir.
Very cool.
Thanks for...
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, sir.
Yep, definitely. As you can see, a big influence to myself as well.
Absolutely, mine too.
And I was sharing with you that Paul Orndorff is in my top 5 spots.
You mentioned Hulk Hogan. I want to touch on Hulk Hogan a little bit. If I'm off base, guys, this is just from stories that I've been told and the interactions with the guys like Mr. Orndorff and all that.
Yep.
Hulk Hogan could promo like nobody's business.
Yeah.
Between him, Dusty Rhodes, and The Rock, those are the 3 guys that could promo their butts off. Hulk Hogan was a larger than life because he knew how to spin that yarn. He knew how to say, eat your vitamins and say your prayers. Hulkamania run wild on you. I got to tell you, that was Hulkamania to me. Not so much He-Man like I saw with Paul Orndorff, but definitely a superhero in his own right.
Totally.
And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about Northeastern wrestling. You know, when you talk about the early WWF, when Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff at WrestleMania 1 squared off with Hulk Hogan and Mr. T and the Superfly. And on the other side, you had Paul Orndorff and God rest your soul, Mr. Roddy Piper and Cowboy Bob Orton.
Yeah.
Man, am I looking forward to seeing you, brother, July 6th. Always a pleasure to spend a yarn with you, Mr. Orton. That was definitely one of the matches that spoke to me in my young life as a wrestling fan. I had the pleasure of knowing those gentlemen and fellowshipping with them at many autograph signings and fan events. Mr. Orton, I'd like to announce, will be my color commentary for this event.
Awesome.
Because he's one of the best storytellers in this business.
He really is.
And he will be on my commentary booth calling the action live July 6th.
That'd be exciting, man. That'd be very exciting. You got quite a roster that you've lined up for July 6th.
Yes, sir. Like I said, very selective.
Quite a roster. How did you manage to do that? Is it just your years and years of connection?
Right. It's just
you got deep pockets. You're a salesman. How do you do it?
Well, I definitely wouldn't say deep pockets.
How can somebody be the next Eric Nelson?
I I like to network. I like people.
Yep.
Even though the manager of champions is a little dastardly sometimes. I generally like people. People make the world go around, obviously. This is a very people-engaged business.
Right.
Without sponsors, without people who are ready to take that next step, I couldn't be who I am. I've networked everywhere possible. I'm still got my eyes and ears to the ground at everything. I always enlighten people the possibilities that we can do as a team. Like I said, the ship cannot operate on just one person. I like to liken what I do to a ship. The captain of the ship cannot operate the ship alone. So we have our best people that are just as hungry and ready for success as I. And that's what I say got me there, was the people that have stood side by side with me as I have progressed through this. Networking, getting to know people, getting in people's ear, getting to know the people, being in the trenches with the people, which is where a lot of people are missing the boat. No pun intended, of course. There are a lot of people out there that seem to think, well, I don't have to reach out to my fans. I don't have to reach out to people that aren't exactly fans, but could be. That could be sponsors that could help me grow my team. You got to get out there and get with the people. Because if not, you might as well just be doing this as a hobby. And and that's just straight from the heart, brother. Yep.
Obviously you've had great success with what you're doing, and that takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of planning. It takes a little bit of luck, but I believe it takes more determination than anything.
Absolutely. You got to always be facing forward and keep moving in a positive direction. And it's a challenge, it is, but you just got to realize this is what lies ahead. You got to stay the course.
Now, also off camera, we were also talking about one of my other favorite guys, the Barbarian.
The Barbarian.
What stories do you have for him that you can share for us, Eric?
Well, as I mentioned, I spent a lot of time in Virginia.
Yep.
I worked with a group called SPW, who is no longer around, but I did find Preston Quinn and Damian Wayne and Bo Crockett as a result. And I also found this man, the Barbarian. And it says, "Hey, brother, how you doing? Can you get me some bookies?" Love this guy.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure to work with. Willing to do anything in his power to increase the popularity of the event, get your name out there. He'll go in there. Anybody he's in the ring with, he makes them like $1 million. One of the most generous, kindest men I have ever known. Not just in wrestling, but as a man.
I hear nothing but good things about Barbarian as well.
Some of you promoters out there, if you have not worked with the Barbarian, you are certainly behind the curve. You should certainly have this guy at your show. He will move mountains for you. And not just because he's a big, imposing man, but because he knows how to reach the people. And he knows what brotherhood is about. Barb, from the bottom of my heart, sir, I hope to see you soon.
I hope so too. Hope I'm there. Very cool, very cool. Do you have any stories for Hillbilly Jim? He's also one of my favorites.
Hillbilly Jim, well, let's go back to when I was a fan.
Okay.
And the first time that the Hillbilly Jim in his big old overalls jumped out of the crowd to help the Hulkster defeat the dastardly Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. I was like, who is this man? And of course, not long after that, he gets announced from Mudlick, Kentucky, and comes out to Don't Go Messing with a Country Boy. But he was a larger-than-life character that was always reachable. By the way, if you don't know, Hillbilly Jim has his own podcast.
Yeah.
If you have not subscribed, please do so.
Is it Moonshine Matinee?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of great stories, a lot of good material. I'll be talking to you again, sir, real soon.
Yeah.
Definitely a favorite. Always a pleasurable man. I can't say enough good things.
Myself as well. I really like Jim. What about that jabroni, fucking Iron Sheik, man?
Oh wow! Really? Hey Sheiky, did you hear that?
No, I didn't say that.
Probably one of the wildest people I've ever known in my life. Has always a party with the Iron Sheik, folks. Let me tell you what. Philadelphia. The Iron Sheik on one side of me, Nikolai Volkov, King Kong Bundy there. all the ribs they were pulling on each other. Oh my God. That was a experience in itself. That's something that money itself cannot buy. Iron Sheik, of course, one of the greatest stars this business has ever known. I hope to see you again one day, Sheiky. And you break their back and you make them humble. Love it. Love it, love it, love it.
He's one of my favorites. He's absolutely one of my favorites. All those guys from the 80s and 90s are my favorites, man.
We had a really good time in Philadelphia. Probably had one of the more popular booths with those three men part of it. The Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, sat to the other side of us at a different table. And I tell you what, the ribs were just back and forth, back and forth. And that's also a guy in this world that it's not a party without the Boogie Woogie Man.
Mm-hmm. Sheik, is he here in Georgia? Where does he live?
He still resides in the Atlanta area. Obviously, Sheiky has not been the best of health, so he does very limited engagements.
Yeah.
But I am working with his people to eventually have him in front of me again. Because like I said, it'll be a party, I promise.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It'll be a blast to have the Sheiky baby making him humble. Telling all the Joe Jabranis out there that he's going to break it back and make you humble. That's the Sheik.
Yeah.
And there's not another man in this world like him.
Yeah, I totally agree. What about Bret the Hitman Hart?
Bret the Hitman Hart. Well, I tell you what. I remember Macon, Georgia, way back in the 80s, when I got my very first set of sunglasses signed by Bret the Hitman Hart. When I got them put on my face, you know, when I saw the pink and black coming to the ring, when I saw the sharpshooter being executed, one of the greatest submission wrestlers ever, a wealth of information. Oh my God, if you can sit in front of him for a couple of hours, you will you get a whole library of information. Real great with the fans, real great storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
Truly in my top 15 guys of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, I'll even wager say my top 10.
I would too, easily.
Definitely.
What about his partner, the late Jim the Anvil?
Okay. The Anvil. Let's see. Well, my mother always told me that if you have anything really nice to say about somebody, don't say it at all. I respect what he did for the business.
Yeah.
I respect his accomplishments, but on the couple of occasions I got to work with him, he kind of let his demons overtake him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I am sorry that he's gone. I wish he could have seen himself being inducted in the Hall of Fame alongside Bret Hart. I'm sure his daughter misses him.
Yep.
I feel really bad for the family, so I will not disrespect his legacy ever. I will acknowledge the fact that he was definitely a plus in this business. But it's another really sad story of what happens when you let your demons overtake you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about all I can say about the Anvil.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Trying to think of some of the folks that are still around. We've lost a lot in these last couple years.
Mm-hmm.
Mean Gene here at the beginning of January.
Mean Gene Oakland. I'll tell you, from my announcing perspective and some of my managerial stuff, I've taken quite a few pages out of Mean Gene's book. I'm glad I got to work with you a couple times, Mean Gene. I wish you were here still. I would have loved to have had you here with me in July to kind of, you know, take a lot of your takeaways and get your perspectives on what's going on. One of the sharpest minds this business has ever known. And brother, you're missed big time.
Yep. He was awesome. I was really in shock when he passed away. I just didn't expect it.
Well,
you always think these people are going to live forever.
That's the thing about death, that it creeps up on you when you least expect it.
Yeah.
And that's... It's hit me really hard in these last several years. You know, losing my father, losing Bundy, losing Mean Gene, losing a lot of the people who have influenced me in my career.
Well, what about Sergeant Slaughter? I saw a photo.
Sergeant Slaughter. Oh my God, I love that man. We did Military Appreciation Night, South Carolina Stingrays, several years ago. They made me wear the other team's t-shirt, which I looked terrible in it, I might say. And Sarge has an idea. We're going to take 2 active duty military personnel in their uniforms. We're going to have a tricycle race on the ice. Now here's my long-legged, scrawny self wearing the Orlando Reigns t-shirt at a South Carolina Stingray game, trying to pedal a huge tricycle on ice. So I get off after being the Dastardly Manager Champions that I am. Wahaha. And Sergeant Slaughter taps me on the shoulder. I turn around and said, "You cheated." Next thing you know, I get the Cobra Clutch and my ass is on the ice.
No shit.
And it was great. I got pinned by these young active duty Navy guys, and Sarge even put me over in a very great patriotic speech. There were several thousand people there applauding us, including my little comedy act where I cheated a tricycle race, of all things. Me cheat? No, never. And then got a Cobra Clutch and my ass chunked on the ice. Mm-hmm. Sarge, we had a great time. Thanks for the experience. Can't wait to do it again sometime. Maybe not tricycle races on the ice this time, but we'll do something fun. Always a pleasure to work with. I salute you, sir.
Now, you'd mentioned the Rockers. What about the Rock and Roll Express?
The Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, 2 of the most charismatic tag team wrestlers the world has ever known. And I'm going to tell you what, those guys know how to show you a good time. Mm-hmm. You know, after the show, we went to a establishment, if you will. And they proceeded to assist me in getting very inebriated. Lap dances galore. They had fun at my expense.
And they knew a quicker route to being inebriated than you were familiar with, or not?
Well, I mean, I am a sailor, so, you know, I was going neck and neck there for a while, but apparently my liver wasn't as conditioned as theirs. But we had fun, and that's all that mattered, right? I tell you. And, of course, several years later, we did a grand opening at a toy shop. Mr. Steve Allesey, one of my early sponsors, one of the co-founders of Stranglehold. I don't know the whole story, but somehow Ricky Morton and Cowboy Bob Orton got kicked out of the movie theater. How you guys did that is still a mystery to me. I hope y'all will regale me with the full details one day. Bob, maybe if you remember over a Heineken or 2 in July, that'll be a lot of fun. Like I said, the ultimate party animal wrestlers, definitely. They are the epitome of a party.
Now they're here. They're not they. One of them's here locally in Douglasville. The other one's up in.
That is Robert Gibson. He has a wrestling school there. He has some pretty impressive young athletes.
Yep. Have you been down there?
I've poked my head in a time or 2. Okay. Just kind of quietly sneaking in, you know, looking around.
Where do you find your talent from?
Well, honestly, a little bit everywhere. Believe it or not, I do go to gyms. I know you guys will look at me. How does your scrawny butt go to gym? I do go to gyms. I do go to football camps.
Yep.
I do occasionally run into a guy in the bookstore that mistook him for another friend of mine up north. Built the same way. I was like, I thought you were a wrestler friend of mine. And he looked around and said, well, I've always wanted to be a wrestler. I said, well, sir, you're talking to the right guy. Well, that led to this statement right here. July 6th, that 40-man Epic Rumble. Karma is coming for you. So that's all.
Oh, that's your new guy, Karma, that you were telling us about? How big is this guy?
Well, imagine if you took Ken Shamrock and Goldberg and combined the two.
I would try to not imagine that, but no, that sounds pretty intimidating.
Like I said, Karma will make you all despair. He will make you all regret that you were born, and he will remain victorious at the end of that Epic Rumble.
I always regret I was born on Monday morning, but come Tuesday, I'm back to being glad I'm alive.
Well, it's going to take those boys more than just Monday and Tuesday to recover from that whooping. I can tell you that.
Yep. Now, you've worked with a lot of these guys over the years. It doesn't seem like I could, and maybe I could, but it doesn't seem like I can easily throw out a name that you haven't had interaction with.
Well, I have run across quite a few.
Which is really neat to see and hear. Hear these off-the-cuff stories. We like hearing these. I like hearing them. They're interesting, and a lot of us can relate because we've got these stories that we want to share as well. What about the Poffo family?
Oh my God. Let me tell you about Lanny Poffo, particularly. Now, definitely not taken away from Macho Man, because, God, Macho Man, I miss you. Thank you for the memories. Thank you for everything. But most importantly, I want to touch on Lanny Poffo. What really struck me about Lanny Poffo is I'm watching wrestling one day when Lanny Poffo was leaping Lanny Poffo. And he does what later became known as a Swanton Bomb off the top rope. At that time, that was not a very common move in wrestling. My father, who was more of a football guy at that time, was like, I don't know who this guy leaping Lanny Poffo is, but that's my new favorite wrestler. And that always stayed right here. So shortly after meeting George Animal Steel, I told him this story about, we were talking about wrestling and who's your favorite and all this. I was like, I want to tell you who my dad's favorite wrestler is. Well, a couple of days later, I get a phone call. George will say hello, and Lanny Poffo says, well, by the power of the genius, the world's smartest man, I bid you greetings. I'm like, oh my God, it's Lanny Poffo. It's the genius, the world's smartest man. And I'm going to tell you what, that man can tell a story.
He sure can.
Well, we built a special kinship together. I had a show coming up July of 2006, I want to say. I was still kind of helping AWN out, anything I could do to help those guys, since they, believed enough in me to give me a spot, helping behind the scenes and doing announcing and whatever else I could do to help. He agreed that he'd stay in my guest room and go perform at the show. He came in a day early. I said, as we were going out to get food, I said, I got one favor. He said, what's that? I said, please go meet my father. I said, that would be better than watching you wrestle. I said, I want to see his face when you walk through the front door of my childhood home and shake my father's hand. Right? Excuse me a minute. So my father was a musician as well. He was sitting Indian style with his headphones on, playing some riffs, and myself and Lanny Poffo walked through the front door. And my dad gets a good look and said, oh my God, it is Lanny Poffo. And so Lanny Poffo says, well, I see you like music. I try to do his voice the best way I can. And so somehow Lanny gets a hold of a harmonica and they do Puff the Magic Dragon. Now that will be a memory that sticks forward in my head for one of the longest times that I'm on this earth, is my father and Lanny Poffo doing a rendition of Puff the Magic Dragon. You can't buy that in stores, folks. So one of the things that happened as a result of that, my father and Lanny also struck up a friendship. And I know, wow, that's just, it's really hard to speak of my father in the past tense, so forgive me, folks. So of course, Lanny faced Dangerous Danny Horn later that night, in action for the Heritage title. Dangerous Danny Horn cheated, I think. But that's what happens, right? I know you'll disagree with me, Danny, but that's a story for a different day. So one of the things I knew that the late Angelo Poffo, Lanny and Randy's father, was a Navy man like myself. So at the time I was working a Navy recruiter station, so I got some hats and ink pens and shirts and stuff. And Lanny stayed very grateful to me for that. And it's one of the things we talk about when we talk on the phone is his dad walking around wearing the Navy hat. And I'll never forget, after Lanny landed back in Florida after the show and everything. Angelo got on the phone and thanked me for everything. And to have been able to speak to the legendary Angelo Poffo, who was one of the earliest pioneers of our business, was definitely something I'll always cherish. I cannot say enough good things about Poffos ever. Macho Man, one of the greatest this world's known. Lanny Poffo, not talked about enough. Definitely one of the greats. Angelo Poffo, definitely legendary. Like I said, paved the way for a lot of what wrestling is now. Again, I can never say enough great things about Poffos.
I'm in the same boat that you're in, Eric. I've got more respect than I'm able to verbalize for the Poffo family, the entire family. Lanny Poffo was actually the first wrestler I sat down with for an interview. And he was very generous with his time and his knowledge, and he was very, very respectful.
I can see that.
And it just made me feel good about myself, it made me feel good about him. Lanny has a talent to make anybody look and feel like $1 million.
That is no joke, sir.
And he can do it.
And I can definitely piggyback on that and agree with every bit of that statement. Lanny, I hope to talk to you soon.
Me too. Wendy Richter. You got any stories on Wendy Richter?
I have not had very much interaction with her. Definitely pioneer in this business. You know, her stuff with Moolah was always classic. But I can't really say much about her. I didn't have as much interaction with her as the fabulous Moolah, who even made a sailor blush.
Hey, tell me about Moolah.
First time I ever met Moolah, she flirted with me. I was wearing my uniform.
Are you a good-looking guy?
Well, thank you, sir. And I got to look at her. It's like, oh my God, you're the fabulous Moolah. And she's like, well, how do you know that? So I kind of let it slip that I had been an independent promoter for some time. And I said, I would really love to hear some stories. So we sat down and, you know, had a couple of cold ones and told stories, and it was great. Definitely one of the pluses I can say about this business is being as blessed as I have been to be in front of the greatest minds this business is known, to learn what I have learned, and hopefully live up to their expectations. If I haven't, I'm still trying. You know, it's still a process. I will never know everything, but all I can do is keep on keeping on and listening to your knowledge.
How about our buddy Tito Santana?
Oh, I love Tito.
Me too.
Tito Santana was a special guest at the Star City WrestleFest for me in 2014. One of my best friends in the world, my chief operations officer, Dr. Quack, was his feature vendor. Because he says, oh, I love Tito Santana, put me in touch with him. So through me, Dr. Quack booked Tito Santana. And I would say that Tito and Doc and myself, we had great fellowship time. Wildfire Tommy Rich came along for some fun and a lot of great stories, a lot of great fellowshipping. It reminded me that this isn't just a business, it's a family. And Tito is one of those guys that's always, always, always made me feel that way. And I'm always grateful to you, Mr. Santana, for all the years of fellowship and all the patience and time that you've given me.
I really like Tito. Ricky Steamboat.
Ricky Steamboat, well, definitely one of the most inspirational matches of all time is the match between Steamboat and Savage at WrestleMania 3. Steamboat, one of the most colorful, charismatic characters this business has ever known. There will never be another Ricky Steamboat. Sir, all I can say is thank you for all the memories. Thank you for the seeds that you've planted in all of us athletes and all of us managers, all of us, even the guys who just sit commentary. Every job in this business, Steamboat has inspired us at some point in some fashion.
He really has. He really has. He's just a champ mentality. I think when you're a champion, I think it starts with your mentality, and then it personifies into your your physical. What about Tony Atlas? Tell me a little bit about Tony Atlas.
Mr. USA Tony Atlas. Mr. USA Tony Atlas is practically an uncle to me. Like I said, he came not only several shows before I lost my father, and has always been grateful, always helped me promote, showed me all the ropes, helped me push some doors in that were initially closed to me. He got me on the radio. I said, I'm Tony Atlas, this is my manager. We need to be on the radio right now. Boom, we were on the radio. And we're live on 97.9. That was so surreal. Tony, that was great. And then, of course, some of the funnier stuff. I've spent quite a bit of time with Tony Atlas in my career. We walk into a Golden Corral with my mother. And everybody's looking at me weird. You know, here's a skinny, redheaded woman and this guy here. And here's this great big old imposing man, Tony Atlas. And so we start joking around. I said, Dad, why is everybody looking at me funny? I said, well, you did get my good looks. I'm like, well, for all you folks who are observing and taking notice, I give you Wrestling Hall of Famer, Mr. USA Tony Atlas. And the place exploded. We had a great meal at Golden Corral. There was lots of storytelling. I definitely think that helped with my father's memorial show because that was the night before. There were times where Tony, he's one of the biggest ribbers in this business, where he told one of my best friends, Ricky, who helped me found Stranglehold, that he needed some yellow tights because he got tired of chasing sailors in the airport. Tony would come up with the most off-the-wall things just to get you to just be like, ah. And of course, Ricky at the time, love you, bro, was not accustomed to Tony's antics. So, he's just like, has this what the hell look on his face. And then, of course, the phone ring, it'd be somebody else, and Tony answer, hello, I'm looking for a special on ladies' lingerie, this and that. And of course, by then, Ricky had been part of the conversation a little bit, so he was like, oh, here we go, Always a pleasure, wealth of knowledge, life of the party. You don't get any better. A true champion of a man. Not just his accolades, but as a man.
Yep.
A man that's helped me to no bounds in this business, and still continues to do so. Tony, I cannot wait till July. I cannot wait till you show George Wiley the mistake that he made by trying to ban me from ringside when you lead the true Americans to victory. If that man, Leatherface, when his chainsaw gets in the way again, you'll beat him like you did in 2016. That's right, Leatherface. We've got our eye on you. We know you got some tricks up your sleeve. Brian Titus, don't even think about it. I'm watching you. And I remember the manager of champions always one step ahead. And when guys like Mr. USA Tony Atlas in my corner, I can't lose.
This is gonna be good, July 6th.
Yes, sir.
I'm my mouth's watering. I'm stoked. I've been telling the missus about it. Telling my twin brother about it. I got a brother named William.
Oh, very nice.
And well, I'm excited more than everybody else, but they've had to listen to me talk about this. So, I'm pretty stoked.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Everybody else is like, we're talking about wrestling again. I said, of course we are.
Yeah. Hello.
It's life. Wrestling is life.
It is. So when we were on the phone talking on Friday, you were sharing with me some of the work that you've done with Animal, the continuation of the legacy of the Road Warriors into the to the new War Kings. And
I gotta say, I know I touched a little bit on this earlier.
Yep.
I remember we were going into a Hooters the night before we did our Survivor Series pay-per-view party at Dave & Buster's in Virginia Beach, where we had Demolition Axe and Coco Beware's guests as well. It was on my mind because so many of the legends that you and I and the fans out there, and even my brothers and sisters in the Indies, were inspired by are dying.
Yeah.
And it's not something that I take very lightly. And I asked the question, I said, can there be another Road Warriors? He gave me this really mean look. I'm just like, uh-oh, I didn't want to dine on danger and snack on death, let me tell you. I definitely didn't want the doomsday device, you know what I mean? I definitely didn't want my tail beat for that. But that was a curiosity question. I'm like, because, sir, you and Hawk on the top of my list. I've lost one of you. I know one day I will have to say bye to you again for the last time. I don't want the legacy to die. That's what I said to him, and he said to me, if you can find the man with the look, the moves, and the ability to talk the way that me and Hawk and Precious Paul Ellering talked, he says that I'll definitely nod my head. Well, he found those people. Crimson, Jack Dane. Oh my God, fellas. You sold me. I can't wait. I know I'm going to get a heck of a main event out of you guys. With Animal at your side. You guys are declaring war out there. You are the kings of that war. And I've been following you and I've been paying attention. I've been on notice too. I'm looking forward to this. Call to Arms is going to be one for the books. And I know you guys are going to help make it happen. I'm very stoked.
I'm stoked too. I saw their picture and I'm like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. They look appropriate. They look like they're taking the torch and they're running.
And with Animal at their side, they can't lose.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. So you got the War Kings, and you were also talking, you were mentioning a little bit about, God, you got into action figures, and you were sharing some of the history of the action figures, and was it the AWA you were telling me about?
Well, this was the story that I was told.
Okay.
And like I said, this is all secondhand information.
Mm-hmm.
So if any of this isn't accurate, I apologize, but this is a story that I was told. I was told that the AWA wrestling figures we came to know were originally supposed to be the He-Man figures.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at them from back in the 83 era, they had the same look as a He-Man figure. You know, they had the same, bottom piece, the same muscles. They weren't as big as what later became Master of the Universe. Of course, Mattel, I guess, made a better offer, so they had all these figure molds they had to do something with, but Precious Paul Ellering being the financial genius he was. And that's something I want to touch on real quick. If you guys go back to a Road Warriors match or Legion of Doom match with Precious Paul Ellering, he always had a folded up Wall Street Journal under his arm. And Mr. Ellering, you inspired me as well, sir. You have helped teach me what a true wrestling manager is supposed to be for his clientele. And I hope that I live up to your standards. So he brokered the deal with Remco to get an action figure deal for Hawk and Animal.
Mm-hmm.
Which somewhere in my vast collection of memorabilia I have the Hawk and Animal action figure set from '83, and then it kind of follows suit with Zbyszko and a lot of the others. And that was the story I was told, where Precious Paul's marketing strategy led to bigger and better things, not just for the Road Warriors, but others emulated that model, and the rest is history.
Mm-hmm. 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 And the Road Warriors were the tag team of the 80s. I mean, you had the Road Warriors.
In my humble opinion, they will always, in my mindset, they will always be the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Just hands down. There's never going to be. Well, I can't say never, because we're about to witness something July 6th that I believe will make history. But they will always, in my mind, be the greatest of all time. Mm-hmm. War Kings, you got some big shoes to fill, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
But you sold me. I can't wait to see it.
They got some big guns, so I'm ready for that show. I'm really ready for it. Very cool, very cool. So let me circle back. It's really interesting to hear your relationships with a lot of these wrestlers. I mean, these are all guys that we love. And these are all stories that we all wish that we were living. All right. I mean, every one of us wants to sit down and have a beer with Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Hillbilly Jim and Ricky Steamboat and shit. You name them. We want to sit down and we want to hang out with them, hear their stories, and be part of that gang. And it's really neat to hear that you've been able to do that.
Yeah, with a lot of these guys, absolutely. And I like to sit back and drink my beer and just let knowledge flow and just listen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I bet there's a ton of it at these shows.
You can't put a dollar sign on that.
No, you really can't, man. Which is why I'm doing this channel, because I think a lot, and that's why I always ask what inspired you, and to tell me those early years, because you know, the wrestling reminds me of the good times with my father, the good times with my brothers.
Absolutely.
You know, and whether they embrace it now anymore or not, it reminds me of being back in those days.
I'm gonna steal your figure again.
Yeah.
Real quick. I want to talk about this particular figure a little bit. Obviously, you know this is the Barbarian. This particular figure came from a line called the Classic Superstars that was made from 2003 to 2010, which was the early part of my wrestling career. Well, I started collecting these figures because, like I said, it was the guys I grew up watching. You know, Barbarian in this guise as the part of the Heenan family and the Faces of Fear. And I also have the variation where he was the Powers of Pain warlord. But first one I ever got was the Ultimate Warrior, who was like Superman to me.
Yeah.
You know, there were a lot of people out there who did not like the Ultimate Warrior, but Ultimate Warrior with his charisma, his just pedal to the metal, night and nothing self, was just like, oh my God, it's a painted up Superman.
Yep.
Well, of course, right next to the Ultimate Warrior figure was Andre the Giant. I mean, there's no comparison there. There will never be anybody like Andre. There will be lots of big men in this world, but there will never be another Andre the Giant. So what I have in my possession, not at this very second, obviously, but back in my collection at my abode, I am 25 pieces short of owning every Classic Superstar figure ever made.
Are you really?
Yes, sir.
Shit, I know what we're doing later.
And most of them all have a story.
Yeah.
I remember we did a quick VIP signing in my dining room with Road Warrior Animal.
Oh.
And I had my figures stacked up in the living room. And he walks up, he says, "May I?" I said, "By all means." And he picked up the Legion of Doom pack that had them in the red shoulder pads and stuff. He's like, "When did I sign this?" I said, "Philadelphia, 2009. I said, "When you first gave me your telephone number." He said, "Oh, yeah." Signed a blue paint pen. So I had the rest of them on standby.
Yep.
So we did it Comic-Con style. I had one person stand here, one person stand here. Animal sat here, and we just went around the circle and kept going. And he says, "I want to go watch the Pacquiao fight." It's like, everybody pile in the car, let's go to Hooters. So we went to watch the Manny Pacquiao fight. We walked in there like, well, it's $15 a head. It's like, well, I have Wrestling Hall of Famer Road Warrior Animal in your house, and you're going to tell me $15? Are you really? And the manager overheard Road Warrior Animal. He come running over there, right? And he says, "Oh my God, Road Warrior Animal." Said, "You guys sit over here." And he took us over to these areas where it's kind of off to the side and kind of away from everybody else kind of getting in the way.
Yep.
He said, "Whatever you want's on me." So we ate, drank, and we were merry, and we watched the Manny Pacquiao fight.
Nice.
And that's another memory. And thank you, Animal. That was great.
That's pretty cool. You must have, you must be a real likable fellow. I can't see many of these wrestlers want to take me under their wing
Well,
to
I'm
hang
not going
out.
to sit here and say that everybody likes me. There are some people that, for whatever unfounded reason, find me dislikable. Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm going to be me, whether you like me or not. You're not financing me, you ain't feeding me well. I don't got to get to what the other F stands for. We're all adults here. We understand what that means. But for those of you who've had my back, who have helped create these memories, love y'all. There's more to come. And you can write that as a check and cash it, because that's the word.
So take me back, continue a little bit of your journey. I think, in my mind, I feel like we're about halfway through the story of you developing what is now the Stranglehold Championship Wrestling Network.
Well, as we're sitting around eating snacks and just kind of kicking our feet up, and I had all these names that I was going through on my list. My wife was there, my friends were there. We're all trying to figure out how are we gonna brand ourselves. You know, I had one idea I had was high octane wrestling. I'll show you how wrestling is done. You know, the big HOW. That was a big one on the list. And then I'm like, no, that still sounds kind of you know. But then we're listening to the Rock Station, and Stranglehold by Ted Nugent comes on. My wife said, "That's it."
Yeah.
Stranglehold Championship Wrestling. And you know what our punchline is? Because only the strong may survive. And And that's for all you folks out there, you would-be warriors. Only the strong may survive. So all of us at the table, you know, some on the phone, we're all military vets. Myself retired, Mr. Allison retired, Mr. Bullard retired. You know, Ricky did his time, got out. Mr. Gallup did his time, got out. They all played a key in the founding of that company. That's why we can say we were the only military veteran founded wrestling company in the world where the founding members were all vets.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. Yeah, thank you for your service.
Thanks, sir.
So you're coming together, you're picking a name. What about, how do you create the financing for the first couple of matches? And certainly you've already established a network through working with Georgia Championship Wrestling, was that the name?
Right, I had established with Georgia Championship Wrestling, AWN helped me plant a lot of seeds. SPW Virginia helped me plant a lot of seeds, especially doing a lot of the big conventions and signings and fan fests that we had done up to that point.
Yep.
You know, I had attracted a few vendors out of those deals, and it was just, hey, you want an opportunity that's something bigger than you've ever done in your life, something where you have memories that money cannot buy.
Yep.
And everybody's like, yes, I want that. I'm like, let's look at the possibility of being a sponsor and vendor for Stranglehold Championship Wrestling. This is what we're doing. This is what we have. This is what I can do for you. Of course, over the years, I've made lots and lots and lots and lots of contacts. So I'm able to say, okay, you know, whatever legend they come to me, my production guy just recently, Gangrel. I want Gangrel. So I call him, sir, are you available on this date and this time? Yes, I am. Okay, here's the price. And I know my production guy's nodding, saying, I made memories that I cannot put a dollar sign on. And that really has been the framework to my success.
So when somebody sponsors a particular wrestler, is that somebody who wants to really see them perform, or is that somebody who wants to put their logo on their back, or how does that
it could be any plethora of things. I've had car dealerships sponsor really big name wrestlers and say, okay, I want them to cut a commercial. Yep. Obviously we have that capability. We've done commercial for businesses. We have gotten 8x10s with the logo of that company printed up and said, okay, you know, this person was here in my business at this time. We're going to sell promotional photos. We're going to go out and get some action figures off the market and get those signed and sell those as merchandise. You know, we're going to have t-shirts made. I mean, the possibilities out there are endless. And what the vendor does is they collect all the proceeds from that.
Yep. Are they doing it in-house, or is there any online?
It varies. I've seen some people sell some of their past stuff online before. I've seen a majority of it done in-house during the events, whether we be at their establishment or whether we be at a fan fest somewhere. You know, it just really varies.
Did you have to raise a lot of money for your first event, or was it in the hometown that you lived and you could kind of
Well, my very first event, the guy that I was partnered with, Mr. Hunter, knew most of the businesses. He knew the layout of the land. So like I said, we didn't raise a very big budget the first show, but we had a very big turnout.
Right. How did you achieve that?
Well, the same way I found you, just coming up saying, hey, this is who I am, this is my company, this is what I represent, this is what I want to do. And I sold you.
Yeah, you sure did. You sure did. You're sitting right here in my studio.
Because, I mean, like I said, people have to be part of the equation. People want to feel like they're part of something.
Right.
That is where so many people lose sight of what they're doing, is if you don't make people feel like they're part of something, you are missing the point.
Yep. Now we got one hell of a show coming up in July.
Yes, sir.
And well, I'm not going to miss it for the world.
Well, neither am I.
Obviously. So this will be really exciting. What can we expect coming out of Stranglehold Championship Wrestling?
Well, you've got the 40-man Epic Rumble that is the inaugural Rumble for that venue.
Okay.
Because, you know, and I'll give you guys a plug. Riverside Epicenter, it's always an epic day at the Epicenter. They came to me and said, hey, how about an Epic Rumble? So I'm going to give you an Epic Rumble. I'm going to give you a sample of some of the best unsigned guys out there. As you witnessed earlier in this broadcast, Mr. AC Mack joining the match. But AC Mack, as impressive as you are, karma is coming for you. Just so you're ready.
This is gonna be good. This is gonna be good. What's next after that? What's coming down the road? Give me
Sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit.
My goal is to once we get Atlanta in the books, we want to tour and go to some other cities.
Okay.
I don't want to be just a local promotion. I want to be on a national scale. I have worked on a national scale. I might as well get my brand on a national scale.
What are your next steps to try to achieve that?
Well, I'm looking at Columbia, South Carolina. I'm looking at Raleigh, North Carolina. Virginia Beach, obviously, I'm very familiar with. I spent a lot of time there. There are some places in Tennessee I'm looking at. There are some places in Alabama I'm looking at. I have a wide range of people I'm talking to, a wide range of deals that I'm working on getting signed, sealed, and delivered. And from there, we just keep trucking along. We keep on keeping on.
Yep. That's the truth. So it sounds like this year is going to be a big year for Stranglehold. Sounds like it's going to be a big year for both professional and independent wrestling.
Absolutely. And we're at a pivotal time as a business right now. You know, people are talking about AEW. I mean, you guys were at the SHW show recently with the members of AEW showing up and really getting a huge response. Like I said, everybody's looking around. I want more of this. Not just WWE, not just AEW, but I want more in professional wrestling. They want more. Well, I'm going to add to that plate, folks. I'm going to have you want more of my product as much as you want of theirs.
Now, if people want to come to your show, how do they find your product?
Best thing to do right now, I have Stranglehold Championship Wrestling Network on Facebook. All you got to do is look at our event posters, our videos there. I can easily be reached there. Me or any one member of my board. And tickets are available. And I'll have a link posted soon if you want to do pre-sales. And of course, I'll have some at the door.
How about folks that want to either sponsor you or want to contact you because they want to be part of your event, maybe a booking?
Easily done. Message me at Stranglehold Championship Wrestling Network on Facebook. I'll be right with you. I'm easily found there. Like I said, it's a one-stop shop.
Will your wife be performing on July 6th?
Yep, like I said, Ashley America, looking forward to working with you, sister. But you better be ready for Brandy Scotch Baker.
Are you training your wife?
No, my wife has already properly trained. She graduated with WWE star Heath Slater. So she already has the tools of the trade. I'm just there to, well, kind of oversee victory, if you will.
Now, when you guys get in a tuffle, do you guys ever settle things in a old-fashioned wrestling match?
Well, sir, that information is classified.
Ah!
I will say we got a beautiful 4-year-old boy out of that deal, but I'll leave that alone.
All right. Well, I can connect the dots, I guess. Huh?
Absolutely.
Very cool. Very cool.
She's going to kill me for this.
We'll cut anything out we need to cut to respect your wife, certainly.
But I just I had to add that for a little levity, if you will.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, it sounds like you've put together quite an organization.
Well, I've had a lot of good help. Mr. Campbell, I know you're watching. Brother, thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Quack, couldn't have done it without you, bro. Mike Money, thanks for planting the seeds. Ricky Owens, one of my oldest childhood friends, more than 30 years of our lives together. Been a hell of a ride, brother. Stay buckled up because we're not done on this ride. Steve Allsey, thanks for everything. Thanks for always believing in me. You guys know we can only go up.
Can you give a word of inspiration for the other folks out there that are either trying to start their own small business or just having a hard time in general? And
never stop pushing. You're going to get 100 no's before you get one yes. I promise you that. I promise you that. Just stick to your guns. Keep your product consistent. Don't sway away from something. Just people say, well, if you did this, don't sway away from the initial mission of your product. Believe in what you're selling. Because if you don't believe what you're selling me, how can I buy it if you don't believe in what you're selling? Mm-hmm. That's the key.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can really appreciate that.
And definitely, while I'm thinking about it, David Christian at Boot and Heel. Brother, you are one of the hungriest, most inspirational guys I know right now. Thank you for everything. Thank you for your fellowship. Thank you for partnering with Stranglehold Championship Wrestling. Thank you for making me a part of Boot and Heel. We're going to conquer the world together, brother. Guarantee it.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice.
You see it here, folks. The Manager Champions on Andrew Interviews, where only true legends and true champions interview.
Might as well just stop and then press record again.
Manager of Champions Eric Nelson here. You've all heard of me. You know that July 6th, for the first time ever, a 40-man Epic Rumble. Here today, AC Mack.
What's up, man?
On and popping, baby. First time in history I had an AC Mack.
That's right.
The 40-man Epic Rumble. Riverside Epicenter, July 6th. Stranglehold Championship Wrestling presents Call to Arms. Be there.
Did that just happen right here? Did that just happen right here? That just happened.
Holy shit.
That's how you do it.
Holy shit. Holy shit.
I think I was making a booking out of it.
This is great, man. This is fantastic.
Just a sidebar note, Road Warrior
Sure.
Animal, Gangrel, Bob Orton, Tony Atlas.
Wow. And I've worked Gangrel before. I've had a singles match with him, so we're cool. We're cool people.
I think you'll be in good company.